Hey everybody, hope this finds you doing well. Hope everyone had a lovely holiday weekend. For those who celebrate in the US, my name is Danelle. This is Networkchain. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Some of the discourse that's been happening, particularly over the last couple of weeks, have to do with MicroStrategy and JP Morgan, or I should say strategy. Formerly known as MicroStrategy, JP Morgan, which is the largest US bank in the United States, recently came out with a memo regarding billions of outflows potentially coming out of strategy due to the evaluation by the Morgan Stanley Capital Index, which is a firm that has several indexes, one known as the MSCI World Index. There's another one called the MSCI US Index, and currently MicroStrategy, the company, is in both of those indices. Now, JP Morgan mentions there's a possibility that MSCI, which periodically reviews what companies they are going to have included or excluded from the indices, they go through various levels of evaluation and determining whether or not these companies stay in the index. And now they are currently evaluating whether or not they're going to have a cap or decide to exclude, I should say, companies that have a certain amount of digital assets as a part of their treasury, because they believe that if it's over 50% that's a part of that particular company, that could technically be considered a fund. And so these indices do not hold funds, they hold public companies that are operating companies, and so they may now classify companies who have Bitcoin or other digital assets as a majority of their balance sheet. They may not consider those viable companies and look at them more as funds. So, with that, there's a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to strategy and these strategy stock prices. You can see here, MicroStrategy has vastly underperformed Bitcoin over 2025, and usually it's the other way around, particularly when Bitcoin is on a high and on a run. MicroStrategy has been known to do a 2 or 3x the return of Bitcoin in some cases, and over certain time frames have done even multiples of that. But MicroStrategy has definitely had its fair share of a downtrend over the past year. And so a lot of people have been concerned about whether or not strategy is going to be a hold for the next several years. Now, people like me, who is a believer in Bitcoin over the long term and believe that Bitcoin has the opportunity to continue to grow in value, in turn, strategy will have the opportunity to continue to grow, especially because of the fact that they have almost 650,000 Bitcoin on the balance sheet and continues to accumulate Bitcoin, now using their preferred offerings on the market. So you can see here that strategy faces potential MSCI exclusion. And because JP Morgan issued this warning, there has been a lot of fear when it comes to strategy. And we have seen that fear reflected in the selling of strategy, and the price has continued to go down, particularly over the past several months. So you can see here that JP Morgan analysts indicated that MSCI is considering whether companies with over 50% of their total assets in digital currencies should qualify for inclusion in traditional equity indices. Given that Strategy's balance sheet is heavily weighted with Bitcoin, it is a significant risk of exclusion. Now, many believe that this is one of the tactics that a lot of traditional firms and banks can take depending on their access to particular stocks, that there are times where they may say something or put things out in the news, but then they potentially could be doing something opposite of that behind the scenes. Now, we know JP Morgan, their CEO, for several years has talked against Bitcoin particularly, and now we're seeing that JP Morgan is now actually creating an offering that's going to basically be leveraging IBIT, which is a Bitcoin ETF. So we're seeing that they are now getting into the crypto business. They're also allowing their wealthier clients the ability to trade and have access to Bitcoin ETFs as well. So despite what the CEO have been saying against Bitcoin over the last several years, we're now seeing that JP Morgan is now really getting into the crypto business. So sometimes you have to take what comes out in the news and the headlines with a grain of salt and make sure that you do your due diligence and really, decide for yourself if you do choose to invest in this asset class, what are the possibilities for the growth of these assets in the future. We still believe that Bitcoin has a lot of room to grow, particularly as we're seeing inflation. It continues to be a concern around the world in fiat currencies, and with Bitcoin being a finite, secure ledger that is allowing transfer of value and storage of value without the need of a so-called trusted third party, I believe that there's still going to be a lot of value with that. And so we see that banks, public companies like Strategy, other institutions like BlackRock, which is the largest asset manager in the world, which has currently the largest Bitcoin ETF in the world, they are jumping into this asset class. So we do see that traditional finance is jumping into this asset class. We're seeing that a lot of different offerings are being offered, not only in Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies as well. So to me, the writing is on the wall that this asset class still has a lot of room to grow when it comes to the market growing from tokenization, as well as people looking for other ways to store value outside of fiat currencies. So you can see here Michael Saylor in response, it sought to clarify the company's identity. It's basically saying that it's not a fund, emphasizing that it's not just a passive Bitcoin holder. He pointed out that Strategy operates as a software business, and it does have a software business that's based in Virginia, and it has an active financial strategy countering the narrative circulating around MSCI's concerns. So, from my understanding, MSCI will be coming out with their recommendations, I believe, sometime in January or February of next year. So, definitely, we will be keeping an eye out to see what happens with Strategy's price and also what happens if they do choose to exclude Strategy from their indices. Also, as I was mentioning, there's still demand that's coming into Bitcoin. So as you can see, BlackRock, as I just mentioned, the largest asset manager in the world, they own an income fund, and they boost the amount of Bitcoin ETF holdings by 14% that's in that fund. So you can see here how much it has grown over the past year and a half or so. And so BlackRock is seeing the value in Bitcoin and is continuing to accumulate. Also, big news in the United States, the first United State, Texas, they are the first to buy over $5 million of BlackRock's spot ETF. So they now actually have Bitcoin on the balance sheet in the state of Texas. You can see the president of Texas Blockchain Council said that Texas recently bought the Bitcoin ETF. A couple of weeks ago, November 20th, Texas became the first U.S. state to buy Bitcoin for its strategic reserve. They bought they bought 5 million at approximately 87, so they were able to buy the dip on Bitcoin at about $87 per Bitcoin, and their purchase was made through the IBIT ETF, and this move signals the growing state level interest in Bitcoin as a reserve asset. So Texas is first. There's definitely other states that have come with legislation and regulation that is friendly to their residents with regards to holding crypto, being able to pay taxes, for example, with crypto. So this just continues to show the optionality that is coming with Bitcoin, and it's growing throughout the United States. As we mentioned, no matter what happens with Strategy and MSCI, there are still public companies, there are still institutions, there are still banks, there are still states, there are still sovereign nations and other entities that are getting involved and are investing in the crypto. You can see here that just in the last 30 days that the entities holding Bitcoin has increased, and we're seeing not only public companies, we see governments, private companies, we have DeFi, smart contracts, we also have obviously exchanges that are holding Bitcoin as well. United States is still currently the top holder in terms of the number of entities that are currently transacting and holding and investing in Bitcoin. So obviously we'll continue to see these numbers grow over time, but despite the Bitcoin price, we obviously have seen volatility so far in this fourth quarter of 2025. We shall see what happens with Bitcoin going into the end of the year. Of course, make sure to stay tuned with us at Networkchain on X as well as IG. Obviously, we'll try to keep you posted regularly on X and IG, and then, of course, here on YouTube. And we really appreciate you watching. Hope you had a great holiday. Hope you have a great start to your week. And we look forward to linking up with you soon on the Network Chain. In the meantime, take care. Bye bye.